Welcome back to another HVAC-Engineering-Techie training video. Today's video is on retro-commissioning contracts and pre-project planning. We've broken these sessions up into little modules so you can get in deeply and understand each little piece of the process. Again, have to say that retro-commissioning may not be linear like I'm teaching it, but have to teach it some way. So remember, this is the channel that talks all things HVAC, engineering design, construction equipment, systems, test and balance, controls, efficiency and performance. And today is on retro commissioning. So one thing I'd like to ask you before we start, if you haven't become a subscribing member, would really like you to be one. It doesn't cost you things, absolutely free. You just have to hit that subscribe button down below and give me a thumbs up if you like the video. It costs you nothing, it's free, but Google uses that data to evaluate my videos, which keeps me on the air, and I'd really appreciate it. Let's get started with RCx Contracts pre-project planning. Thanks. All right, let's get started. So let's first take a look at what videos we actually have in the retro commissioning series. And the first one is Cx-20, the technical retro commissioning process. The second one is Cx-21, RCx overview and process matrix. This lesson is Cx-22, which is RCx Contracts and pre-project planning. Cx-23 is retro commissioning pre-site activities. And RCx-24 is system assessment and issue discovery. 25 is RCx system testing. Cx-26 is root cause identification and issue analysis. 27 is RCx quick fixes and system optimization. 28 is RCx corrective actions and post-project activities. And that's the list. So let's get started on the first one, which is contracts. Now, of course, you got to have a contract to start a project, but this is actually really important. What you put in the contract, you need to direct the owners towards what's important and to let them know what you need to do and what's expected to be delivered. So it's kind of a learning process, but it's a document you need, and you need to have the right contents, and that's what we're going to talk about here. So the owner's overall goals and objectives for the RCx project. Why is he doing the project? Those reasons can be because things don't work. I need it fixed. I'm getting way too many complaint calls. My tenants are unhappy. We're not able to do what we need to do with this building because we have so many problems. It could be high energy and gas usage. Now, no one wants to spend more money for energy and gas than they need to, but most retro commissioning projects I've done in my career have all been to make the building work. Yes, they'd like to save money, but it's not the main reason to do the project. Anticipated corrections to the building space performance. Yeah, we want it to be better temperature. We want it so that occupants are more productive. Anticipated change in trouble calls. We only have so many technical force, and we need them to be effective. And if you overload them where they can't possibly get to all the corrections, then we have a problem. Anticipated energy use goals, if they know. Maybe they just say, we seem to be spending a whole bunch of money and energy and gas. Can we make it less? And, the problem with retro commissioning is you don't know until you get there. It may have a lot of problems. It may have fewer problems. But in my career, I've always had this little fear on every single retro commission project to do. Man, maybe I can't find anything on this job. But it's never true. It has been super easy to find problems on jobs because every existing building has lots and lots of problems. Many reasons for that, and we'll go into that easy, but we need to put in some goals. Anticipated water use goals. We used to ignore water because it was so cheap, but now it's changing. Water is a scarce resource, and municipalities are starting to charge more for it, so we need to watch water. Identification of owner's manager for the project. Who's going to manage our project for the owner? We need to know who that is. Scope of work for the RCx. What is the overall scope? And we'll go into that. Like we said, normally we market to people who have lots of buildings because the marketing process is pretty severe and it takes some time. So what building do you want to commission? If they have lots of building, they have to have a process to actually decide which ones to do. A lot of times it's the worst building one of the most complaints. Sometimes it's the best building. You never know what their thought process is, and you need to help them through this process. Gross square foot of area by area of buildings included in the scope. Occupancy by operational area of the buildings. We need to know what kind of work the people are doing in the building. Facility operation conditions, which includes occupied schedules by area, control temperatures and humidity set points by area. So we know what is our goals, what are we supposed to be doing. And any special area operating conditions, if you have secure areas, you have other areas that we have to have some condition to enter the space, like we have to have a guide with us, or we can't use pictures. There's a lot of things. If we have special spaces, we need to know. Systems included in the scope of work. What systems are included? Normally, it includes enclosure, HVAC systems, controls, plumbing systems, and electrical systems. And the reason is, those are the systems that touch everything we talked about. If we want the building to work, we want it more comfortable, we want it more energy efficient, these things can all affect that, so that's why these are included. Now, you can do other things. If the owner has been having terrible trouble with fire alarm system and he wants that fixed, you can include it. It doesn't affect the ambient or the atmosphere inside, but it's affecting his peace of mind to have a building working the way he wants it. So if he wants that included, it's no problem. It's just not a part of the normal process to make a building more environmentally friendly. Desired project schedule, how fast you want it done, how slow you want it done. Description of the RCx team and what resources will be used from the owner staff, if any. A lot of times I've gone into jobs where we're going to use the owner staff to fill up my team, so their cost becomes less. Well, actually it doesn't, but they're already paying those people, so if they're not terribly busy, they can use it. But a lot of times they're so overloaded they don't have any time to do this, so they cannot, which is unfortunate. This is really great training and helps them keep the building in persistence longer if they're part of the team. But that's up to the owner. You have to find out what that is. Required deliverables of the RCx effort. He needs to decide what deliverables they need. Life cycle cost requirements for system repair and upgrades. What calculation basis does he want to use for life cycle and ROI? Some is just simple ROI, which I prefer, or it might be a more complicated financial calculation of ROI, like, present cost, future cost, all that sort of thing. And then, of course, the RCx project cost. What's the cost going to be? And that's usually not a big deal, because remember that retrocommissioning is the absolute lowest cost method to make an existing building perform. Now, you can go into a building and just change everything, rip everything out and change everything, but that's disruptive to the workforce, and it's expensive, and it has long paybacks. But what we do is adjusting, correcting, fixing, training, all those things are fast, they don't take long to do, and they're low cost. So, but we still have an RCx project cost we need to identify. Now, here's an important one. Definition of quick fixes to be performed during the RCx process. So we want it in the contract that this is how we're going to do quick fixes, and we need to define the quick fixes in the contract for the owner's benefit. And what we're talking about is there's a lot of things that we need to fix as we go, so those things don't cover up other issues below them that we can't find unless we fix those. For instance, if you have a air handler with a filter totally plugged, I guarantee that system's not working. Well, if we don't put in new filters, we can't find out if there's other operating systems below. So we want to do those quick fixes, and during the contract it defines how we're going to do quick fixes. And deferred maintenance issues is one of the quick fixes, of course, material cost limitations. And normally for a quick fix, we say a quick fix is something that we can repair, correct, or adjust without purchasing materials. Now, we might have, standard materials with us, like screws and bands, panduit bands, that sort of thing. But you don't have to purchase a bunch of duct or some pipe or anything like that. And the labor limitation is something we can fix in 15 or 20 minutes. It's not something that's going to take, it's got to be, materials got to be purchased, it's got to be, project has to be engineered, the project has to be scheduled, it has to have contractors in there. That's not a quick fix. That's a capital improvement, so that's something we don't do. And time limitation, like I said, 15 to 20 minutes, because we don't want to stop the process. We need to move through it. And how will quick fixes be accomplished? By us, the RCx provider, by the owner staff, or by key subcontractors. And this is an owner's decision, what he wants to do. If we do it, we need to have staff available to be able to do what we need to do. I prefer having the owner staff do it. I think it's important. And what happens is if these staff aren't with us even, but they're on call to us, so we can get them to fix this while we move over to something else, and then they fix it right away, and we move back. That's a good way. Or else maybe they have some job contractors, job order contractors for the owner already established, and we can rely on them to schedule them in to do some quick fixes for us. It's up to the owner basically how he wants to pay for it. And then one way we suggest, which I think is really great, is that he put an allowance in the contract for quick fixes. So if we don't use them, that's his money. But if we need them, we can charge the cost of these quick fixes against that account, which is a great way to do it. It's a safe way, and a way that everyone, no one's hurt financially. That you have something to bill against. So budget allowances for quick fixes, I think, is the preferred way to go. How will capital corrections beyond quick fixes be accomplished? So once we're done with the project, we've done our quick fixes, we've calculated and found everything that we know we can fix, then we give a list to the owner of these are the capital expenses we recommend to you to make these corrections, which will have these costs and these paybacks to do. So how are those going to be done? Is it a design, bid, build process? Is it negotiated with pre-approved contractors? How is the owner going to do that? We don't know what it is yet because we haven't done the projects. We don't have any idea whether big, small, or any at all. But if you had one, how would you do it? And then we need to kind of know this to know what kind of data we have to put in those recommendations. Design, built by RCx contractor or pre-approved contractors. Now, we as a provider can provide that service, but of course it's cost. So we need to know whether he wants us to do it. Most building owners I've dealt with do not want us doing them because I think they realize they have other processes that they've already set up that they trust and that they think are what they want to do. So you let them do it. It's not a problem. Commission, again, this is really important. In your contract, you need to make sure it's clear that you need to commission the changes that are done, whether they're done by you or somebody else. You need to provide the commissioning. The reason is you need to set the system up to perform like you needed to do, or else they can't hold you accountable for what you said, the benefit they will provide. Because if you have someone else do the construction and they commission it poorly, and it doesn't work, everybody's going to be upset. Well, you can't have that. It has to be you, and you have to be held accountable for the performance of what you said. So, it's a two-edged sword. You need to make sure it's done correctly, and you need to make sure your corrections are what actually needs to happen. But it's really, really important. Because I've had jobs where the corrections aren't done for 2 years. Because if they were a big problem, they had to do maybe 6 months of engineering, and then they had to go to contract, and then they'd start for a year. So those could be problematic, but you still need to be in there. Now, the way I get us in commission, I tell the owner, this is what we're going to do. We're going to add our commissioning fee into the proposal for the corrections. So the whoever does it knows right away what we cost to commission it, and they can include that in their project. So the owner doesn't pay this commissioning from the retro commissioning contract. It's paid by those individual contracts. System manual and facility guide requirements. So what does the owner need for system manual and facility guide? Now the system manual basically is a manual that has all the startup and run and operational conditions for the systems. And the facility guides tells the operators exactly how to operate, run, man, maintain the system. So how deep does the owner actually need these documents? Now if it's the owner, he doesn't have any at all, then he's going to need a really good set of documents. If the owner already has them complete and he just needs them to be updated with what you've changed, then that's a different process, and we need to know that from the owner. Communication methods between facility staff, the occupants, and commissioner. Are those going to be communication, just emails, phone? What kind of trail do we need for that? So we just talk about the commissioning methods. Maintenance capabilities of maintenance personnel. Do we need to help them? Outside maintenance contracts. What outside maintenance contracts do they have, and what are we going to impact them? Facility security requirements. Is this a secure facility? Does it have high security components within the building? And then what they have to do is figure out a way through their security people of how we can accomplish what we need to accomplish. It's not difficult. We've done that many times. Sometimes we just have to have a guide with us, someone who's with us to make sure we don't violate any of the security requirements. And in most of those secure facilities, we've been able to take pictures of equipment problems. We can't take pictures of anything else. And sometimes the footage on our phones need to be inspected by the security people to make sure we've not taken any picture that violates their problem, or they may want to take the pictures, which either way is fine. They just need to be with you. You can say, take a picture of that so you can have it for your report, because pictures are really, really important in this to explain exactly what's going on. Training requirements for owner's personnel. So if the owner's personnel need help in understanding the RCx process in general, maybe if they're going to be a part of it, we may need to have a little class to tell them what we do and how we do it so we all understand. Or systems and troubleshooting training. Maybe I've done jobs where the operators don't understand the system they have, and they're operating it entirely incorrectly because they just don't know. So we put classes on to tell them, this is the system you have, this is how you operate it, this is how it works. So those can be included in the contract. There's just some hours for you to sell. But it's important that the owner understand this is what he wants you to do. You put it in the contract. The contract becomes a two-way communication device. It's a communication device for you, and it's a communication device for the owner. So it's important these get into it. So now that we've got a contract, now let's talk about our pre-project planning. Now we need to figure out what we're going to do and get the stuff we need to do it. All right, pre-site information. So we need to know the physical location, site access, anything that we require to get on site, utility providers, local facility contract information, facility document procurement. We need to procure these documents from the owner, architectural and MEP drawings and specifications, key equipment or system submittals, system upgrades and replacement records and drawings. You know, if they've done some major updates to the systems or if they've added wings or whatever, we need those drawings also. O&M manuals, if we can get them, you know, if not, we can figure that out online. Past tab or commission reports. Tab reports are interesting. I mean, they're not valuable other than that we want to see what the tab guy found and if anybody ever fixed them. That's the only thing. A commission report's the same thing. We just need the executive summary. Other than that, they're pretty well not worth much, but it's interesting to see what they found and if anybody ever fixed them. A lot of times, both for tab and commissioning, the guys do a good job and they find all kinds of problems to be repaired and no one ever does it. And so pretty much it's still there. We need the utility bills for electric, gas, water, and purchased energy. And if the owner doesn't have copies of those bills, then we need to get his permission to access them from the utility directly. Because if he just has a list of the energy usage or water usage per month, that's not enough. We need to actually see copies of the bill because there's a whole bunch of other data on there we need. So that's something we need, and sometimes that's irritating, but that's what we have to have. Maintenance, repair, and replacement orders for the maintenance management systems. We need to have an overview printout. Don't do a detailed one because it'll, you get a book a foot thick and you don't want that. And for at least the last couple of years, we'd like to know what kind of system's been working on how often. If you see one little piece of equipment they've been to, every other day for 2 months, that's a problem. You need to check that out. That's all we're looking for. What do you do if the documents are not available? Now, that becomes somewhat problematic. Then you're going to have some more time in that particular area to figure out what's actually there and document. And you can do that. Or you might want to sell a service to the customer to actually go in and do as-built within the facility. That's expensive, but we don't normally like to do that. But if they need that, then we can offer that service. Preliminary RCx plan. Define the RCx process for the project. Now, what this plan basically is it takes all the information you generated in the contract and moves it into a RCx plan. That document will be used to communicate what you're doing to the staff, to the key operators, to even occupants. So it's going to communicate, and to your staff that weren't involved in those meetings with the owner. It may include the scope of the project, defines the RCx team, defines the RCx team's role and responsibilities, includes a preliminary schedule, defines system assessment specifics, defines site testing to validate all systems and that are operating correctly, defines system quick fixes, defines predicted system optimization activities, defines what will be included in the RCx report. So all those things are things you've already talked about with the owner and documented elsewhere, but now we need to put them in the plan so we can show other people. And this is the current facility requirements. CFR is created by the provider and input from the owner and user information from the contract and facility documents. Its current facility requirements is very much like an owner's project requirements for a commissioning project, except it deals with what's existing. CFR is used as a guidepost for the project and defines what constitutes project successes. Conducting a CFR workshop with the owner and his staff can make the process much easier. So you sit down in a meeting and you ask a whole bunch of questions, and their answers become what's in the CFR. That's why it's easier. Otherwise, you may have to track down different people to get answers. It's much better to have them all in a meeting. Typical CFR contents may include owner's overall goals and objectives, project scope, definition of quick fixes, quick fix allowances, owner's list of staff assigned to the project, intended use of facility staff or to assist in the RCx efforts, intended use of outside contractors to assist us. Now, why it's important, it's really best if you can get some operators to be with you, because remember, they have all the keys, so they can get everywhere. If not, access becomes a little more troublesome, but and of course, they're going to learn a lot from the process. Communication methods between facility staff, occupants, and providers, so everybody understands how we're going to communicate. Equipment and system maintainability expectations. So what are we going to change? How are we going to make things work better? There might be something in their building that they've never been able to maintain because they can't get to it. So maybe we're going to recommend a fix to put something in place that allow us to access that unit. Security requirements, accessibility requirements, indoor environmental requirements. What do they need for different spaces? Special user occupant requirements, environmental sustainability goals. Do they want this to be a green building? Are they trying to do something like that? We need to know what that is. Training requirements for owners' personnel for the RCx project testing training, if they're going to be a part of the testing process. System and troubleshooting training on, like I said before, if they don't know, we'll put it in the CFR and tell them exactly how to do that. Actually, the system and troubleshooting training will probably go into, instead of the CFR, probably go into the facility guide, which we'll talk about later. Life cycle cost requirements for system repair and upgrades. How do they want us to calculate that? Training requirements for users and occupants. Remember, the users and occupants actually have a big impact on how well a building operates, so they may actually need to be trained depending on the circumstances. Most of the time it might just be the ongoing operational performance of the building report, which we talk about in another section. And that document continually communicates with the occupants on what to do, what not to do, and how we're doing better and why we're trying to reduce rates and all that sort of thing. Performance verification approach, how we're going to actually verify performance. Current facility requirements include areas of the building that have changed and used since original design. So, maybe they bought this building and it was a school building and they turned it into a manufacturing facility. And they're still using the systems that were in there for a school building. And that's kind of important to know. Occupancy schedule for occupied areas and set points per area. Occupancy and occupied set points per area. Preliminary RCx schedule. What is our preliminary schedule now? Remember, we don't know what's wrong with the building, so we don't really know how long we're going to be in certain areas, but we have a general idea. We're going to start in 3 weeks, and we think it's going to take a month to do this. We think it's going to take a month to do that, and that's all changeable, but this is the rough outline of what we plan to do. Schedule established by the provider and the owner, normally used by the owner to notify occupants and staff of activities. It must be understood that schedule dates are approximate because issue discovery unknowns will impact the durations. Establish RCx project kickoff meeting date, location, and required attendees. Usually that RCx commissioning includes the area managers, the building manager, the operator staff, those operators and people, and security people. So those are the things that it normally includes, and normally occupants are not included in that meeting. And establish RCx project kickoff meeting date, location, and required attendees. Now, this meeting is intended to bring everybody that's going to be affected by this up to date with what we're doing in the building, and it's basically the managers of the building, the local managers of the building, the operating staff, security, and anyone else that works for the owner that's going to be in that building that could be affected. It doesn't normally include occupants because this is about a process they're not really need to know about, other than to say that we're going to be in the building and working. And that's pretty much the pre-planning process. So I hope that was a little informative, and then we'll go on to the next ones of which you actually get ready to do testing and the different things you need to do in the building. So glad you were here. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate you. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.